You're on. Yeah, you're on. All right. I'm going to try and point this camera at you.
Oh, you know what?
It's all right. You tend to be on this area.
Yeah,
So,
I will run over there.
That's fine. But you know, if you think of it, if you hold something up, you turn it first. Get over here.
Okay, I'll try to remember.
Yeah, but it'll be pointed in this general direction. Try to.
All right, this could be fun.
I think we might be ready. There's your clicker.
Will I try a practice click?
Yeah, sure. It worked up there too?
It worked up there too. That's the
Oh, yes, yes. Yeah, you can leave that up there.
Okay, I'll see that up.
All right, I'm going to turn the volume up on here.
Oh, but worst case, it'll come through the computer.
Yeah, which that's up to. Okay, I think we're ready. You want an introduction?
It's up to you.
You ring the bell.
Oh, no.
All right, good morning, everybody. Good morning. Carolina Maritime Museum in Beaufort today. This is quite the way to start off the new year with an audience like this. Biggest that we've seen in months, if not at least in years. Coming out to the museum to enjoy our presentation that we have today. It is presented by Keith Rittmaster, our natural science curator, and he's going to be talking about whales in North Carolina. He has a slideshow set up, and it has several items up here on the table. I just wanted to welcome you all. I will let you know we are being live streamed, at least I think we are. The camera is going to be kind of pointed at Keith, since he's the man of the hour. So that he's probably going to have a few little technical difficulties here to start. We'll go ahead and get the show underway. We do have another presentation like this next week about the oyster gardens of North Carolina, corporate oyster businesses from years ago. So I'm going to check with Cindy. She's going to tell me the. Okay, he's got a microphone.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have any microphone. So, all right, I'm going to turn it over. We've got some folks watching online. We're good to go. If you see me run up here and do something, just try to ignore me. Keith, you too.
All right, great, thanks.
Thanks.
Glad to be here. I hope everyone can hear me, so I don't have to use a microphone. This is a big crowd. Did someone offer cookies or beer or something? And Megan's taking notes, and I'm zooming, so I better watch what I say. For about the last 35 years, my wife and I and veterinarians and biologists have been the North Carolina Marine Mammal Stranding Network. So we get the reports of all the dead, dying, entangled marine mammals, including whales, dolphins, manatees, and seals. And we also are involved in studying some species offshore, and I'm going to introduce you to some of that today. I will stay as long as anyone wants to. I'm a little worried about a bunch of questions during the presentation. We can just try to blurt out a question if something's not clear or if you have a question. But this would be about a 50-minute presentation if I power through it. So we'll see how that goes. And thank you, Mark, for providing the funding for the Zooming. Ben's going to show up in a minute and tell me what I'm doing wrong. Nothing is advancing. Anyone in this crowd could probably figure. Is it just a button?
Let's see. What do you? It's plugged in. We got it on. It's on.
Well, magic touch.
The arrow.
You're right. Yeah, I know that's right. So we got
Clicker.
right. So I'm gonna just go back one and go forward one. We got this. Okay. If your phone makes any noise during this presentation, I will ridicule you. You have to put $10 in the donation box. Good time to silence your phone. And very briefly, each of these topics deserve a full hour lecture or even a class. I'm going to cover these topics as they relate to North Carolina whales. This poster represents all the known species of cetaceans. It's a taxonomic term that refers to whales, dolphins, and porpoises. All the known to science species of cetaceans on Earth as of about 10 years ago when this poster was published. Since then, one has gone extinct. Another will likely go extinct this year. At least 3 more have been identified and named and will be added to this. All the baleen whales are facing away from me. All the toothed whales are facing toward me. I'm going to dig into that just for about a few more seconds. Humpback whale is a baleen whale. That's what we see most often this time of year off of North Carolina. The biggest animal on Earth is a blue whale, A+ star. Here's a fun fact. The biggest animal on Earth is a girl. because in blue whales, girls are bigger than boys. Blue whale's on top, it's facing away from me. The little neonate whale that was swimming around the port last week was a North Atlantic right whale. That is a baleen whale. The biggest, the toothed whales are facing toward me. If you spent more than a week here, it's very likely you have seen bottlenose dolphins. Where is it? Right there. Technically a small toothed whale. And the largest of the toothed whales is a sperm whale on top. This shows a humpback whale's feeding. The baleen is attached to the upper jaw. It has no teeth. Inside its lower jaw is literally tons of water and terrified fish. And it'll close its mouth, and that's how baleen whales feed. And a bottlenose dolphin showing its toothy grin is a toothed whale. I sent around a mystery marine object. Oh, it's made it around already. Someone here knows what this is, right? Look out. So it fits in the upper jaw, the hairy parts on the inside, the stiffer parts on the outside. Very strange stuff. The poster, I'm going to circle. This is like the oh wow of my career. I'm going to circle all of the toothed whales we have identified in North Carolina. And then there they are with a green dot. I'm not going to circle. That blows my mind. I'm not saying all this is normal. I don't want to tell people to rush to North Carolina to see all these whales. This is 35 years of data collection, but this is not. My Uncle Peggy said he saw a whale. This is all scientific cruises or stranding responses. Now I'm going to put a green dot on just the baleen whales that we have documented in North Carolina. Thank you. I want to bottle that response. I mean, yeah, it's unbelievable. Now, I put them all together, and 34 species. I'm not bragging. I will work hard to prove me wrong, but that is more than any other state. It's not because we have the best biologists, and it's not because we have the biggest coastline. This is just something special about North Carolina and cetacean diversity. Coast of North Carolina with its characteristic 3 capes labeled, and offshore there are 2 continental shelves. Fishermen have known this for a long time. With each continental shelf hosts unique species of fish. Birders have been learning this, and we're just coming along now learning it about whales. There are 2 continental shelf edges, and in some cases you can predict what whale species you're likely to see around those shelf edges. Where do those 2 shelf edges come together? Right off North Carolina. Where are they closest to land? Right off North Carolina. So I think that contributes to what we're discovering about whale diversity. The next slide is going to be the same land, the same water, just sea surface temperature. Red is warm, blue is cold. And I imagine some of you, maybe most of you have heard about the Gulf Stream that brings warm water up from the tropics, and the Labrador Current extension that brings cool water from the polar regions. And where does the warm and cold meet close to shore? Right off North Carolina. So as a result, we do have the, we have documented the southern limit of some northern species like longfin pilot whale, common dolphins. We've documented the northern limit of some southern species like Rice's whale and rough-toothed dolphin. You're not going to be quizzed, but I just want to show you how unique North Carolina is turning out to be. One of our locals, bottlenose dolphin, I just want to point out a little bit of terminology I might be using. The tail is often called the flukes. They have 2 flippers, pectoral fins, dorsal fin. Every cetacean in North Carolina has a dorsal fin, except right whales. So if someone says, Keith, I saw a whale offshore, what was it? Probably the first question I'll ask is, if it had a dorsal fin, would you have seen it? Because if it had a smooth back, that's very exciting. It's big news, and it's a North Atlantic right whale. Blowhole, beak or rostrum, and in toothed whales, the area between the blowhole and the beak is called the melon, M-E-L-O-N. I think most people agree. Primary purpose is to focus and amplify sound. Sound is their world, the way vision is to us, we think. To me, seeing is believing. To them, it might be hearing is believing. And what they do with sound are what smarter people than I are learning a lot about. I want to just take a second here to see if there's a question or anything. I'll do this periodically. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
Dolphins and porpoises are
Okay. Dolphins and porpoises. Prize for a great question. Take that to the museum store and they'll give you your prize. They're both marine mammals, they're both air breathing, bear like, young, warm blooded. What you're seeing here are bottlenose dolphins. I know that person on the beach next to you will swear they're a porpoise. I don't care if you correct them. I just want you to know they're bottlenose dolphins. Porpoises are north of us, and they're called harbor porpoises. And their range in the wintertime comes down to New Jersey, Virginia. I have only seen dead porpoises in North Carolina. I've never seen a live one. I've looked for almost 40 years. And I have a slide that shows visually and anatomically the difference. I'll get to it. Thanks for asking. And that just shows a good shot of a bottlenose dolphin taking a breath. Unlike you and I, these animals have to have some degree of thought to take a breath. Like we're involuntary breathers. We could be knocked out, anesthetized, sound asleep, both halves of the brain, and we'll keep breathing. You anesthetize one of these, learn tragically, they will stop breathing and die unless you put a tube in their bronchus and breathe to them. They have to maintain some level of consciousness on some part of the brain to keep breathing. Just a brief overview about whaling in North Carolina. And these were the three main species. I'm not going to go into much detail. Many more species were sought after. Many more species were taken either incidentally or from strandings. But these are the main targets of whaling from North Carolina. Pelagic means offshore. That's a sperm whale habitat. They were sought primarily for the huge quantities of oil in their heads. In North Carolina, shore-based whaling targeted mainly right whales, but they took other things as well. And the main product there was oil rendered or pressed out of the blubber. Light, heat, probably not lubrication, but lighting and heating. Right whale blubber. And bottlenose dolphins were also hunted off our shores. The primary product, lots of products, but the primary one was oil from the lower jaw. Now, that's another story. I mean, why bottlenose dolphins? Why lower jaw? Why North Carolina? This John Hare, the historian here at this museum, told me the most lucrative product per ounce in the entire global whaling industry was North Carolina's bottlenose dolphins lower jaw oil. Like, kind of seen over going like he does. And what's up with that? So I put all these oils. I get geeky about this. And I, like most specimens and many body parts, I got oil. I got fish oil, coconut oil, blubber oil, and so on. Like I just said, I put them all in the freezer. And the only oil that did not turn solid was the bottlenose dolphin lower jaw oil. This is in the tissue inside the lower jaw. Biologists call this acoustic fat. Had a blues musician come into Boneheads the other day, and he said, I'm going to rename my band the Acoustic Fats. I thought that was great. Anyway, So huge demand, aeronautical equipment, guns, sewing machine, and any lubricant, anything in cold climates, there's a huge demand on lower jaw oil from bottlenose dolphins. And this just depicts a whale boat launched from the beach and a right whale on the beach here in Beaufort, probably Shackleford Banks. Again, right whale, know it's a right whale because it has no dorsal fin, smooth back. If you spent more than 2 days here, you have seen this. It's on every county building, every county website, every county vehicle. It's our county seal and our county coat of arms. And most people probably think those are fish, and that's okay. Beaufort used to be called Fish Town. But not only are they whales, they are right whales. How do I know? Oh, A+ star. Yeah. So my thing is research and conservation and education. This has nothing to do with this. This is everything to do with economics back in the day and cultural history. Because these were hunted from our shores unsustainably. And now they're highly endangered. I'm not blaming North Carolina for the demise of this species. But it's just fact. They were hunted here and hunted offshore and mainly hunted further north. Beaufort Inlet, one calm day, and I came across a right whale mom and her newborn baby. The mom is facing away from me, baby's facing toward me. Terrifically excited to see a mom presumably healthy and a baby presumably healthy. That's the mom's blowholes there. That's the baby's blowholes there. The lower jaws arch up slightly, almost slightly higher than the upper jaws. Just to orient you. And I can take a photo like this and send it up to Phil Hamilton at the New England Aquarium. And let's say I get off the boat, it's sunset, and then I finally rinse the boat and shower and eat dinner. Oh, forgot to send the photos. And I sent it to Phil at like 10:30 at night. By 11:15, he replies, tells me who the mom is, what her age is, what her reproductive history is. I said, Phil, that's just amazing that you can do that. He goes, no, Keith, it's depressing. If you sent me a picture of a mom and a calf, there's only 350 right whales left. Only 70 of them are reproductive females. 10 of those haven't given birth in 10 years. They know these whales. He said, if you send me a mom, I don't have to go to the catalog. I know them. And so, surprisingly, another mom, right whale, and calf showed up the same week in Beaufort Inlet. And of course, I thought it was the same mom and calf when people were telling me, but I went out just to make sure. And my gosh, I got good photos of both of them. I invite you to play photo ID. You don't have to. This is not easy. But Phil was able to tell me their names, that they're different whales. It was terrifically exciting because these moms had left the waters of Florida and Georgia where they usually give birth, we think. And they must have given birth somewhere between Georgia and here. So it's always neat to know that there are 2 more live babies in the population. And just to sort of give you the status, this is the number of newborns each year in this tiny remnant population of right whales. And there's some optimism here. Certainly in the 2009, we were just ecstatic, like this species might be saved. And a down tick, and then a horrible year in 2018. Not only were 0 calves born, but I think 18 or more adults were documented killed because of human causes. And that just threw up the alarm and a lot of depression. But since then, pretty good uptick. The 2022 figure is going to be 15. This year, so far, I think the number is 10 newborns documented. Number 10 died at the Morehead City Port Friday or Saturday. And this just shows the total population trend and puts us at about, a little less than 336. And this is probably one of the most depressing stories. I'm not going to go into it. If you do a internet search for snow cone, you may not get that cold, sweet treat. You might find out about this right whale snow cone who got horribly entangled and is presumed dead. But anyway, entanglement is very likely the #1 killer now of this species. And good, dedicated people that are smarter than I am are working really hard to solve this. So this is a right whale mom and a very young calf, and the mom is entangled. This depicts sperm whaling from a mothership in a launch and putting harpoons in a very huge, scared, pissed off animal. Wouldn't be for me. And a sperm whale is what stranded at Cape Lookout in 2004 and ultimately is on display in the back of this museum. And that's the display, and that's the animal. And this area here is not the skull. It's not the brain. The skull is way back here. This is all soft tissue and an organ called the spermaceti organ that contains the gallons and gallons of that oil that I mentioned. Very bizarre bit of anatomy. The dolphin. All right, so it's called the porpoise fishery. Scientific literature, historical literature refers to it as a porpoise fishery in North Carolina. And I just want to let you know, I've looked at dozens of pictures of it. They aren't fish, none of them are porpoises. They're bottlenose dolphins that was targeted and killed in this effort. And this just shows some pictures of the netting and the bringing ashore of bottlenose dolphins. This is what the source of that lower jaw oil that was so valuable. What's valuable? About $50 an ounce 150 years ago. Wild guess. She's writing this down. And just the dolphins were used for many things, but I just wanted to highlight once again. What did I say? $50 a gallon? No, this is $46 an ounce. And anyway, I just wanted to highlight the importance of the lower jaw oil. I suspect for someone killing these dolphins, which wasn't an easy task, it probably wasn't pleasant. It might have been worth more to cut the jaws out of the one you just killed and go get another than to get more out of the one you just killed. And that just seems like tragically wasteful. The dolphins you see today are the progeny of those dolphins that were killed. And these are the sites. So right around Cape Lookout, Beaufort, Swansboro, Fort Macon are the sites of the dolphin hunts and dolphin processing in North Carolina. Bottlenose dolphin with a humpback whale. Something I'd like to see. And just yesterday, Karen Altman from Cape Lookout National Seashore, I hope this works, sent me this little video from yesterday afternoon. That's the lighthouse. Of course, you recognize that. It's something alive and civil do well. Unmistakably a humpback whale because it had a long pectoral fin. And that's Shackelford Banks in the background. Paula Daly on my boat took this picture, and it's my favorite picture of all time, and it's a humpback whale bursting through a school of menhaden. You can see the baleen in the upper jaw. This is the throat pleats in the lower jaw. It has some barnacles on it right there. And these baleen, these fish are terrified trying to get away. That was pretty exciting. And I love this picture John Russell took, and it's I mentioned photo ID on right whales is the head. Photo ID on humpback whales is the tail, especially the bottom edge, the bottom side, the ventral side of the tail. So that picture is good enough to ID this whale. What do you think those white marks are? All I hear is mumbling. Entanglement. Evidence that this whale had survived an entanglement. No question about it. And it's called photo ID. And we know pretty well the Georges Bank, New England to Caribbean, Bahamas route of humpback whale migration. But the surprise with one that we photographed off Shackelford Banks in 1995, the next year was up at Georges Bank off Cape Cod. No surprise there. That's pretty well known. But 13 years later, a film crew in Bermuda photographed the whale and sent it to the people who managed the catalog, and they made the match between Shackelford Banks. And it may not be a big deal to anyone here, but I mean, it's just, this is how we learn about movements and associations and birth rates of these large animals. Is through photo ID, and that was a shock. So, dead humpback on the beach, Cape Hatteras. And it's kind of a priority to figure out who this individual is. Is it in anyone's catalog? What can we learn about it? So we want to photograph the ventral side of the tail to do that. How do you do that? Two people cannot lift this tail. So we cut the tail off and get a backhoe and raise it. So that's what we did. Now I'm going to shrink this photo and put it on the lower right there on the right side of the screen. Now I'm going to bring John Russell's photo off of Shackelford Banks in. No, oh, so then right. Now I'm going to flip that upside down. With me so far? Now I think I'm going to bring John. You're going to play photo ID with me. John Russell's picture of a humpback off Shackelford Banks that we talked about. And if you look carefully, you'll notice that the right tip is darker than the left tip. Yep, same. Two entanglement scars in roughly the same area. And if you look really carefully, you might think it's a match, but people more dedicated and smarter than I am have determined that it was not a match. But it's darn close. And there's people who spend crazy amounts of time trying to learn about whales by doing exactly this. That's Ocean Pier. That was a strange sighting that local fisher Chris Conklin brought my attention to. And I would expect a right whale or humpback, but this was unmistakably a fin whale because of the way the dorsal fin gradually slopes up from the back. And I expected it to strand because we don't see fin whales close to shore that often. But the next day we saw it racing through Menhaden, just active and healthy looking as can be. And so that was really nice. Fin whale. Sperm whale. They're hunted brutally, globally. But I'm pleased to tell you, if you head to the continental shelf edge in a boat, day, night, winter, summer, there'll be sperm whales. And if you don't see them, and you happen to have your hydrophone, who has that? I do. You will hear them. They're always present. And I've seen them nearly every time I've been out there. So maybe dozens of sightings and hundreds of sperm whales. So they're out there and they haven't been driven to extinction. I'm seeing babies, so I think they're reproducing. Whalers refer to them as carpenter fish because when they're in the vicinity of sperm whales, they would hear and likened it to the sound of a hammer hitting a nail on the head. So I have a sound clip that the acousticians on one of the ships I was on recorded that tell me it's 3 sperm whales. And I just, for your interest, wanted to play it for you, and I hope this works. And if you're expecting melodic, repeating humpback whale songs, you'll be very disappointed. But let's just see if this works. This is sounds from sperm whales. It's a little too loud.
Okay. You want to do it again? Let me turn it down.
Well, we'll play it again, and then I didn't know how to turn it down, so I was going to screw it up. Yes.
Does the skirmish study organ help amplify the sound coming out or receiving sound?
The question was, does that spermaceti organ, or what?
Or does it do none of that at all?
No, the question was, does it manipulate outgoing sound or receive sound? I think everyone agrees mainly outgoing sound.
Right, 'cause it's the job as the receiving, right? For a lot of
Yes,
the
yes, the lower, yes, that's exactly what we think, at least in toothed whales, probably baleen whales too, is that most of the hearing is through the lower jaws. There's a lot of plumbing in the head of that sperm whale, blood and air. People have x-rayed it and MRI'd it to try to understand how it might manipulate sound. There are air sacs, and there's some superb animations online to understand sperm whale acoustics. But I mean, we have no idea what they're saying, but we think it's really, really important. And I'm just going to highlight a few other species. Gervais beaked whale, True's beaked whale, Cuvier's beaked whale, which is also called the goose beaked whale. Actually, the Cuvier's beaked whale is now considered the deepest diving mammal on Earth. Like 8,000 feet-ish, 2.5 hour dives. That's not normal. That's some of the extremes, but that's just crazy. That's deeper than sperm whales as far as we know. We do have a lot to learn, but all these beaked whales are very deep divers, very asymmetrical skulls. And here's something that I'm starting to note, and I can't ignore anymore. We are finding more plastic more of the time in deep divers than shallow divers, which is curious to me. In our bottlenose dolphins that swim close to shore through our trash, rarely do we find any plastic. We do have a couple of extreme cases, but with the deep divers, I mean, we need to look at the results. I'm thinking about half of them have plastic and some of them have extreme lethal, no question about it, plastic. I'll probably show you an example. Short fin pilot whales are fairly predictable off North Carolina. This is a minke whale that's stranded alive at Cape Lookout. And this is how we respond sometimes. If the Park Service has heavy equipment, it's on natural seashore, we'll get them to get it up on land, and actually the heavy equipment can help with the necropsy, which is an autopsy on a non-human. No one would associate North Carolinians with killer whales. Well, there's a record of one stranding in 1974, and this is a photograph of it. It's stranded alive, and somehow they got it offshore, and hope for a happy ending. I'm not really sure, but anyway. And then lots of photos and videos have come in that are reliable, particularly this time of year, particularly associated with bluefin tuna. We don't know much about them, and they're not predictable, but killer whales are on our list. Many species of dolphins, not just our bottlenose. So as you go offshore, you'll see fewer bottlenose dolphins, and then you start seeing spotted dolphins. And depending on the habitat and depending on things we don't understand, you'll see different species of dolphins. And this is just an example of some of the species we see offshore. This is one of the new species that you will not find in a book and you will not see in a poster. And it is now called Rice's whale. And I just want to briefly walk through this. It's a whale that others have been seeing for a few decades off south of Apalachicola in the Gulf of Mexico. I was on a research ship and we went to that spot and we saw them. Photo ID and genetics led people to believe that this is a new species of whale that has been misidentified as a Brutus whale or a fin whale. But they seem to be mainly tropical, so they are thin blubber, and when they die, they sink. And a complete skeleton, which is required to name a mammal species, had not been collected. This shows its range, primarily northern Gulf of Mexico. Few records off North Carolina. Some of them are strandings. And when one swam ashore alive in the Florida Keys in 2019, Smithsonian, NOAA, Marine Labs, everyone said, whoa, this is the one. We can now study this and see if it's a new whale species. So a huge collaboration converged on this, towed it to a ramp, performed a very detailed necropsy. It's upside down now. These are the throat pleats. That's the palate and the baleen on this upside down whale. And I hope I'm going to spare you the necropsy photos, but yes, long story short, the whole stinky, bloody carcass got loaded on a truck and then broken down a little more and loaded it on another truck with a trailer that reduced that much. And this is John Osowski from the Smithsonian at the museum's Gallup Channel property, because they asked us at Bonehenge to prepare this skeletal specimen of a new species for the Smithsonian, and no one was around to temper my enthusiasm, so I said, sure. So we got, I think most of Beaufort stunk for about 6 hours. But there we are, pulling the skull off the U-Haul trailer, which will never be the same. And we built a monstrous compost pile with hay, horse poop, and wood chips. And about 9 months later, a big team of volunteers and veterinarians exhumed the bones very carefully, categorized them, and someone had the idea to lay it out. And I just love this photo. And so right in front of Bonehenge Whale Center, which I'll tell you more about in a sec, is a new species of whale named Rice's whale. How does a 40-beast evade science until last year, 2 years ago? Anyway, that's what happened. Pretty big media rollout. And if you do a search for Rice's whale, you'll learn more about it. And you might even see Bonehenge mentioned in those articles. And so as it turned out, the North Carolina stranding of this new species was reclassified as a Rice's whale. This is it, Carolina Beach, 20 years ago. And as you can tell, you don't have to be a scientist to figure out what tortured this individual.
Is that because were they able to reclassify it because they took genetic?
Good question. Yes, they were able to, because of genetics and morphometrics, the measurements of the certain features of the skull. Yeah. Because just about every whale we necropsy, skin samples are taken, and skin is good enough for individual ID in most cases, and also to determine sex. Just briefly, to talk about strandings and the stranding network. These are the organizations that take a leadership role. And as I mentioned, we get the calls for North Carolina. Actually, my wife does, Vicki Thayer. She's got the hotline. And this is an example of a call. This is right off Fort Macon. A beach walker said she saw a whale swim down the beach, get entangled in a fishing net, and swim straight offshore. And it was sunset. And I looked at Vicki and said, listen, I don't have any help. It's going to be dark, and I'm not doing that. We said, if someone reports it tomorrow, then we'll go out and investigate it. And darn it, at 5:30 in the morning, we didn't get a call. And so I begged the fisher to please keep an eye on it. I'll be right out. And I went out. I didn't have anyone with me. And my job was just to photo document it. Was it a whale? Was it entangled? And what's the nature of the entanglement? Then we'll get some experts and experienced people to try to disentangle it. So its dorsal fin is here and it's swimming away from me. And clearly buoys from a monofilament gill net that was set off Fort Macon legally, I should say. So this fisherman did nothing wrong. But it was funny because I was out there photographing it, and I got a call from Marine Fisheries, and they said, "Hey, a fisherman just said someone stole his net off Fort Macon." I said, "I think I'm looking at the thief." But I mean, this is really tragic, and it's a young whale, and it's injured, and it's bloody, and it's human caused. And right after the surfacing and lifting its tail, it did something that I couldn't have predicted. I'd never seen before. It got out of this entanglement completely, and it swam away. And I started to follow it. There it is again. That's its dorsal fin. That's its pair of blowholes. So it's swimming away from me. I started to follow it to get good photos, and I realized there's a whole net out there that's going to entangle something else. So I went back and got it and called some folks from Marine Fisheries and Duke, and they came out because there was too much net for my boat. And we got all the net. And Vicky called the fisherman somehow, and he looked at it and said, "Yeah, that's the whole net." So kind of a success story, although the whale wouldn't agree. This is something that didn't end up being legal. We have one of the projects in the Bonehenge Whale Center is working on this specimen, which is a 3-year-old, 37-foot humpback whale that was hit by a ship and killed. And the ship strike did a lot of damage, but the main damage was the skull. The cranium was broken in 2 pieces. So we kind of designed Bonehenge to tell this story. It's such an important global issue. Ship strikes and large whales. We really don't know how bad it is, but that's my friend Bruce McCutcheon lying next to it for scale. So this is a big girl. I hope I measured right and it'll fit. So I got a couple calls like this. And it might have been an opportunity for a rescue or something. I don't know. We got a volunteer to come with me, and we hopped on the boat and we saw this. And that's the man who called us, and it's in Morgan Creek Landing right over here, 200 yards away. And I knew it wasn't a bottlenose dolphin. And it was I was pretty sure it was a dwarf sperm whale, which is not just a small sperm whale, it's a different species of whale. Way out of its habitat. I was not expecting a happy ending. And by morning, it was dead on the beach. Dwarf sperm whale. So it's facing that way. Its blowhole, you can see closed right now. And then by morning, it was cut up and dead on the beach. And that's my wife, Vicky. She does well to make a teachable moment out of all these things. But we realize that nowhere in this country is this species represented in any kind of exhibit, display in any way. And so we built a skeleton out of it, which is what we've been doing for a while. And the skeleton traveled a bit, and now we have it in Bonehenge. So every one of these strandings, I mean, they have a story about anatomy and diversity, but they also have a human story too. And it's to me, it's interesting who reported the stranding, who did the necropsy, how was the work done? So we try to include those stories. Young sperm whale we got called about in Avon. It's a skinny girl, very skinny. And I am about to show you her entire stomach contents. Blow that up. There was maybe a liter or 2 of squid beaks, which is their main food and what we like to find in their stomachs. The esophagus was so jammed, no chance air could get through. So, and this is another case, you don't have to be a scientist to figure out what's killing these. So when you do your beach walks, it does matter because a lot of this trash is affecting protected marine wildlife. Yes?
Are they mistaking the plastics for their prey food, or it's just by happenstance?
Yeah, great question. Are they mistaking the plastic for prey food? And I'm repeating the questions because we're zooming. I don't know. Because
turtles eat jellyfish.
Right, yeah. Well, okay, so turtles eat jellyfish, and jellyfish look like plastic, and we think that's the association there. These animals are feeding really, really deep. There's no light. These are really deep divers, beaked whales and sperm whales. So does the plastic sound like food? Well, plastic doesn't make a sound, but it reflects sound. I mean, short answer, I don't know, but let's think of the possibilities. One, it eats something that has plastic in it. I doubt it, maybe. Two, it mistakes plastic for food because in its world, in its evolution, anything floating isn't going to hurt you, period. You're the biggest thing. You eat floating stuff, and I mean, whale poop, it wouldn't taste good maybe, but it's not going to kill you the way plastic is. So maybe they just suck up anything that floats. You've spent time offshore. I suspect anything floating, whether it's a 2x4 or a dolphin carcass, accumulates a lot of marine wildlife. Maybe it's targeting that associated marine wildlife, be it squid, flying fish, or something else, and incidentally gets the plastic. Think about it. Let me know what you come up with. Yeah, we're trying to figure this out. Thanks for asking. And our local bottlenose dolphins, and we also use photo ID to study their birth rates, associations, residency patterns, and these are a couple well-known dolphins because of the notches on the dorsal fins. That's how we do photo ID on the dolphins that live around here. This is a dolphin that we're called to on Roanoke Island. If you look really carefully, you'll see there's something weird about the upper jaw, and there's a lot of monofilament fishing line wrapped around the head. Brace yourself. This is the worst story I have, do it quickly. But that's this dolphin, and that's monofilament fishing line that has displaced the teeth, cut the skin's growing around, a lot of swelling, a lot of infection. When we were doing the necropsy, I said, wait, this is such an important issue that's in North Carolina issue, and it seems to be getting worse. Let's not cut all this line out. Maybe I can, I don't know, build an exhibit or something. And both flippers were entangled as well. And the entanglement was chronic. They had lived with this line on a long time. And long story short, the line you saw there is the line you see here, is the line you see here. Photograph, get a good look at it. This tells a different story. This is not bone being cut by line. This is bone of a fast-growing young mammal growing around the entangling line that was slowly killed. There's nothing you can do, nothing his mom can do, and it finally succumbed with an empty stomach. Veterinarians have pieced the story together, and they think it was entangled for about a year. It got entangled when it was still nursing at about 6 months old, and lived or died for a year. Our response in North Carolina has been to try to do what Florida has done really well, put up signs and receptacles and have programs like this and try to educate the public that the water and the beach is not a great place for you to use fishing line. We've collected thousands of miles of line. It's recycled in several ways, and I hope it's helping. But the amount of entanglements we see would suggest it's not enough. Oh, just another geeky graph. We started this monofilament recycling program in 2007. This is all the way up to about a few months ago. Just give you an idea about how much we're actually collecting. So volunteers, I know a couple of them are sitting in this audience now, go to these receptacles, back up the line, get the cigarette butts and diapers and vape bags out, and then deliver them to me. We quantify it, and artists are using it, and some of it can be recycled. Okay, your question. What's that?
Mahi mahi dolphin.
Okay, he's a fisher. Yes, this is a dolphin fish, a mahi mahi. Fun to catch, delicious to eat. And it's because this is called a dolphin that people will call our bottlenose dolphins porpoises. The fisherman says, oh, Keith, I got in the dolphins really thick today. I know they're talking about this. Has gills, gets oxygen from the water. It's cold-blooded, it lays eggs. Nothing like the mammal, warm-blooded, air-breathing mammal. This is a harbor porpoise. It's the only species of porpoise on our East Coast. And if you wanted to see harbor porpoises, go to the Bay of Fundy, the Gulf of Maine, the Gaspé Peninsula, way up north in July and August. And there are lots of harbor porpoises. In the wintertime, they tend to move south. And as I mentioned, we encounter them in North Carolina dead or dying. So this is not healthy habitat for harbor porpoises. They're much smaller. They do not have a prominent beak or rostrum. They have a more triangular dorsal fin, not so much like a surfboard fin of a bottlenose dolphin. teeth are very different. We recently completed and installed 2 displays, one of a subadult female harbor porpoise, another of a subadult female bottlenose dolphin. Not the same number of teeth, but the porpoise teeth are flattened and they're wider at the tip. So but of course, unless it's dead, you're not going to be able to see the teeth. But just another difference. And then I'm going off the geek end here. Oh no, this is cool. Our graphics whiz Stephanie made this, which shows a bottlenose dolphin with a harbor porpoise overlaid with a mahi-mahi overlaid, which I love this. And so it just kind of shows the shape, size, and coloring differences of those 3 species. And somewhere on the bonehenge.org website is this graph. Told you I was on geeky. The attribute and the feature harbor porpoise versus bottlenose dolphin. So it talks about the size and the range and the anatomy and the birth rates and things like that. So there are a lot of differences between dolphins and porpoises. Around here, you're seeing bottlenose dolphins, if you can see land, and if it's a healthy animal. Of course, if it's unhealthy, it could be nearly anything. Let's stop again. Questions, comments? Yes.
Yesterday, they reported that 6 right whales beached in New Jersey. The only thing that they know is going on unusual.
No, I mean, I knew a right whale stranded. I didn't know about the seismic going on. As far as I know, the relationship with I think it's been documented that 6 right whales stranded yesterday. No, I saw the headline and I think I just read far enough to see one. I think I saw it said 6 whales and the title was "What's Going On in New Jersey."
Well, my question is really is about the frequency of this sound. They said
No, I once had a job on seismic ships, and my job was to get them to stop doing their seismic if I saw whales. And this is in Alaska, and a lot was known, but so much more has been learned. At the time, seismic had never been determined to kill a whale. And to my knowledge, that's still the case. It may change their behavior. It may change their behavior in a lethal way. But the cause and effect was not established. And I still don't know if it is. What you're telling me gives me goosebumps. And I hope smarter people than I are really looking carefully at that. Because if seismic is influencing right whales, I think our Endangered Species Act could stop it. Especially if there was some caring individuals in the public would write a letter or 2. That's news to me. That's distressing. Thanks. Yes. Okay, so we got a fresh dead dolphin. I tried to answer that question. About 1.5 ounces per lower jaw. But at $50 an ounce, yeah, sure didn't need much. And to lubricate your gun, 1 drop a year might do it. I mean, I don't know, but I'm just saying you don't need much. But it killed a lot of dolphins, and the records are very poor. So I know 1 year, I think 2,800 dolphins were documented having been killed in Hatteras alone. That was one site, and my number's close, I think. But anyway, those figures don't exist for every site and for every year. So it's really hard to figure out how many were killed. Thousands. That's safe to say. But quite frankly, I don't know. And just the records aren't there.
so about 3 ounces for
dolphin. In the few jaws that I've handled and actually extracted it with, I have mini cider press. I cut out the tissue and wrap it in cheesecloth, and then the oil comes out. I'm pretty sure the way the dolphin hunters did it is they cut the jaws out, they'd hang them up in the morning. The pail beneath them would have a little bit of oil, and that was mine back in the day. Yes.
how soon can you label a dolphin oil? Because you said they like the fluke or whatever, you them or you can identify them. From soon can you determine that this is going to be its footprint for like?
Right, okay, so question now, yeah, how old in the whale's life are they identifiable individually? It depends on the species, and for most, I don't know. For bottlenose dolphins, they're all born with smooth dorsal fins and they acquire the notches. And I would say, some yearlings have notches, but most of them are smooth. By year 2 to 4, a third of them have notches, and as they age, they accumulate them. That's for bottlenose dolphins. This was a very interesting right whale swimming around our port last week, and I tried to get really good photos of the head because I didn't know that answer that question. And I've learned that, within the first couple of months, these growths on the head will begin forming, and that can be used for individual ID in right whales. Of course, these features change over time, and we can make mistakes because that notch I used to identify Zephyr is now obliterated by a new notch that cut the tip of the fin off. So I don't know. I think Zephyr's gone, and now we made this new one. So we probably make mistakes. So really have to go out pretty regularly to document these changes, and sometimes we're able to. But pretty young.
I have a second question or a comment.
Okay.
I'm new to North Carolina.
Welcome.
And I got a fishing license. Now I don't fish off the shore, I've not been fishing yet. Say this line and stuff is, you put up these receptacles, okay?
Yes.
But when I signed up for my fishing license, I got nothing.
I know.
Okay, so you know where I was going. Isn't there any way that you can put some kind of little package to give to fishermen when they get their license and say, these are the things you need to do?
And is there any way you can do that? Because I have a long list of Keith, what you ought to do is, no, that's a no-brainer. And every 14-year-old kid who gets his boat driving license has no idea about marine mammals or protection or monofilament or any of this. It can be done a whole lot better, and I would like someone to do that because my plate is pretty full, but I care deeply. And that is something we can do much better.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I'm just not computer literate to help you do it.
Be careful when you suggest something to Keith. They'll probably ask you to do it and fund it. Okay, yes, sir.
Yeah, back to the jaw oil. Is there something, I'm a customer, I'm a jaw oil customer. Is there something unique about the percent jaw oil, or is a guy diluted at 20% and something else? How would I know?
Oh, man, you just won a prize too. So, if I'm a jaw oil purchaser, how get the real thing? And like anyone else, whalers were in it, maybe for the adventure, but mainly for the money. And it got diluted. And it was not clear. And a company like the Nye Oil Company needed to establish a reputation that ours is the real thing. And they worked hard through advertising. And you can go on the web and find these advertising. Pure spermaceti, whether it's true or not, pure jaw oil. You won't know. I guess if I wanted to know, if someone in this room handed me some oil and said, Keith, tell me what you think about it, I would put it in a freezer.
Okay.
And if it didn't freeze, and it had a certain smell that you're welcome to smell it, you're adventurous, I would suspect it's authentic. We recently responded to a goose-beaked whale stranding and had huge lower jaws, lots of oily tissue. So I saved the oil, and someone I was talking to said, well, does that jaw oil also not freeze? And I didn't know. So I put it in a little bottle I had, put it in the freezer, and it froze solid. It's curious. Why the beaked whale would lower jaw oil freeze, but not the bottlenose dolphin? Let's find this out. Freezing it is the short answer to your question.
But for most customers, particularly in the old days, they just have to take your word.
Well, no, I'll bet there's some people who could feel and smell spermaceti, for example, and say, no, you diluted this with blubber oil. I'm not buying. And if you're feeling adventurous, I do have some spermaceti that I got from this whale in the museum when it was fresh dead on the beach. I like the smell. It might make you gag. Insecurity for most of this country back in the day. You can touch it and feel a high quality lubricant that was Rolls-Royce transmission fluid, brake fluid and everything. I don't know if anyone here is old enough to have a dad who ran a mechanic shop that reeked of this stuff, but mechanic shop did reek of this stuff. And I believe smart people could smell and feel this and say, no, 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 no. That's not the real thing. That's my guess. Great question. I like giving talks at this museum. Brilliant people teach me. And just a bit about Bonehenge. That's a bottlenose dolphin that we got silly with. I mentioned the dolphin and the porpoise. So those are the two skeletons we put next together just to highlight the differences. And I think I have pictures. We got silly with the dolphin skeleton and painted the whole thing in glow-in-the-dark paint. And child of the 60s, I put a black light up on the window frame. Oh, no, I'll show you that later. This is another acoustic intermission. Let's see if this works. Similar to the spermaceti organ, we think the melons of the dolphins serve the same purpose as focusing and amplifying sound or manipulating it in certain ways. And there are a bunch of air sacs near the blowhole, and they don't have vocal cords. So if you go to SeaWorld and a dolphin opens its mouth and it's doing that because it was trained to do that, because you and I will pay more money to see a cute dolphin talk, or because it's begging for food. Squishing air under my tongue, it kind of sounds like a dolphin. And we think most of the sound is received through the lower jaws, and the ear bones sit right inside the hollow of those megaphone lower jaws. This is about 17 dolphins on a winter day off Shackleford Banks. Listen for whistles, blowing sounds, believed to be signature whistles, the dolphin identifying itself. Listen for echolocation clicks, the pulsed sounds. We call that echolocation. Listening to the echoes, we think it interprets its environment. Is it food? Is it moving? Is it not food? Is it a predator? And things we don't understand. Also, I think in the sound clip, I got something that researchers have called the Big Bang. And it's a sound that's believed to be so powerful and focused, it can kill or stun a fish. And it's always preceded by echolocation clicks, and it sounds like a cap gun or a distant gunshot. So listen for something like, and I think that is what they're talking about, the Big Bang. And this is about a 25-second sound clip. So at the risk of having someone fall sound asleep, I invite you to close your eyes and really listen. Water. I call that dolphin's greatest hits because every sound I've ever heard is in that brief clip. And your homework is to translate it to English still on Monday. Are there any questions? And most of the sounds we really have no idea. Are they mimicking things? Are they communicating things to other dolphins? We really don't know, but sound is really important. And just a few slides about the Bonehenge Whale Center. It was a community grassroots funded effort through a charitable nonprofit and built by volunteers. And it's at the Maritime Museum's Gallant Channel property. So you're looking at Gallant Channel and the new high-rise bridge in the background. And it just serves to represent North Carolina's impressive cetacean diversity and study some of the conservation issues I've introduced you to. A lot of artwork, a lot of natural light, second floor balcony, and it's much more of a workshop than a museum. The idea of a middle school science class in there terrifies me, but I do love to show it off. And on the Bonehenge website, if you go to the tab, plan your visit, I get all those texts and all those phone calls and all those emails. And I haven't said no to anybody yet. He asked me if one person can show up. I said yes. So anyway, it's just amazing that it was like a community barn raising, and even more amazing that they put me in charge. This is that goose-beaked whale I mentioned. This is a current project. We actually just finished this week. It's an adult female, not very well-known species. And one really neat thing we're doing is we're getting a veterinarian to x-ray the flippers on these so that when we reassemble it, we can actually get those bones right. Maybe some people don't care, but I do. And so we try to get as accurate as possible. This is one of the methods we use. And that's it. And it's we finished it last week. And this is actually going to Duke Marine Lab later this month. And I'm just super excited, and so are they. Most of the work we do is for other venues. My friend John putting the finishing touches on the installation on the bottlenose dolphin that's in the window. There's the black light. What does it look like at night? There it is. Where can you see that? So, anyway, and you Zoomers can do a screen capture. You take a picture of it. You'll find this on the bonehenge.org website, how to get a hold of me. Yes.
How do we donate money to help support rearticulating marine mammals?
Bonehenge.org has a wonderful fundraising feature. Thank you, Sue. I suck at fundraising. I hate doing it. And I think Sue's passing ahead. Oh my God.
How much will it cost to build your friend
Pitfall.
How much will that?
Pitfall is going to be about a $35,000 fundraiser to pay people who help me, to pay the welder we will hire, to buy the best material, all stainless steel rod through the vertebral column and through the rib cage framework and so on. And no, I mean, thank you, my development director. But people don't talk about money much, and it's all costs money. Just give you an example. Building Bonehenge was a $300,000 fundraiser. I was sure it wasn't going to work, and it worked. The Sperm Whale at the Maritime Museum was a $50,000 fundraiser. Someone built a website, gave people like me and you an opportunity to sponsor a tooth for $200. Who's going to put down $200 and get nothing? It worked. The ribs, the teeth, and the everything got sponsored. And so that's how those fundraisers work.
Is Bonehenge going to get the skeleton of the baby right whale?
Still under study. Pieces are in various places.
Yeah.
I have made the pitch or the offer that I will do my best to preserve those bones for study and display. And if someone else thinks that they can be put to better use, I'm cool with that. Ask me in 2 weeks. Everything's still being studied and parsed out. It's a great question. In my volunteer, Carrie, who, she said, when I was going off to do the necropsy, she said, Keith, if you get that right whale skeleton, you can count on me for 5 more years. So I told Carrie I'll let her know in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Thanks for asking.
Thank you.
Yes.
What's the gestation?
Roughly a year.
A year.
There's a lot of variation. Certainly weaning begins, it depends on the species, but some bottlenose dolphins I think have been nursed for 4 or 5 years. That's like a really long time. Most species is probably not known. Right whales, we're thinking about a year. Gestation.
while they have an infant still nursing, they probably don't reproduce then, so it's probably several years in between cows.
Okay, I forgot to repeat, but yes, so while they're nursing, they probably don't reproduce. Oh, I don't, if there is an exception, it might be in harbor porpoises. But in general, you're right, interbirth interval for bottlenose dolphins, generally 2 to 3 years, but as the females age, that expands. So I think some interbirth intervals for sperm whales have been documented as much as 10 to 13 years between babies, which interprets as a very, very low reproductive rate. So when they are hunted to the brink of extinction, if they recover, our ability to detect that will span many careers. So it varies. You know, I always have to caution myself to not generalize. As it varies so much, and so these different species have way different characteristics, life histories, birth rates, gestation periods. Most baleen whales face gestation periods around a year.
Can I ask one more?
I love questions.
In your opinion, what's the paying for education for people who are applying for fishing license and renewing their license to campaign for this type of education, the fishing line and the disposal of their hooks and lines?
Thanks. You listening?
Yeah.
um,
I'm in for that.
Yeah, no, so the question is, how do we educate people to get licenses, whether to fish or to drive a boat? You know, what ought to be done? I think it's done in Florida. Virginia's tried it. We haven't tried it here. Is someone who can raise money or get tax money or something to hire a person focused and dedicated to do just that. If programs like this run the monofilament program much better than I'm doing it. And focus on getting that information on the licenses. You sign here, you acknowledge that you read that discarding monofilament fishing line in the water or on a beach is a fine punishable by jail and so on. I've given this talk in this museum a couple times a year, maybe for a long time. And often I get people who come up to me and say, Keith, you know, I was just on a charter boat and the mate was taking all of the line off the fishing rod, threw it overboard and put fresh line in so they could fish with fresh line in the morning. And I said, wow, educated. That's horrible. So my reaction was to put a receptacle and a sign downtown Morehead City where everyone steps on the charter boat. So you and I, we see that, we say, hey, wait, I'll not take that line. I know where it belongs. But there might be better ways to do it. Oh, and I want you on this. No, I think it can be done. But North Carolina is a tough sell for a lot of this stuff. I mean, we have not been able to achieve a bottle bill or a bag man. As far as I know. And you walk away depressed, or I promise you, we need each other. Yeah, get on fire. We can do a lot better. Yes.
In truth, is a lot of people would just write their legislature about it. Because if you deal with people that are actually serving in the legislature, they'll say, issue. Oh my goodness, that's a really.
Thanks.
If we got a bunch of letters to people on the legislature, possibly the legislature, but it's not going to completely be private because anybody will tell you that they're out fishing. Lines break.
Right. So we do what we can. And there's a lot of things that be frustrated and bummed out about. Let's not go down that road. I would say each of us, each of you, you know, just find an issue that's important to you, try to do a good job addressing it. I love what you said. Letter writing has done a lot. I think that's great advice.
Please may I be excused.
You may be excused. Thanks for coming. I think I'm through. Oh, well, just a shout out to all the collaborators in the work I presented. And this isn't just a courtesy. These are people who we all need each other, you know, and all these issues and all these surrounding responses takes a team. So I'm very proud to be involved in a group like this. And I've heard, and if it's on Facebook, I know it's true, that if you put a dolphin license plate on your car, you will look younger and sexier, your car will go faster, last longer, and it will help fund the work I presented today. Yes.
All the whales that you've seen, have you ever seen a blue whale?
Yes.
Where?
The question is, of all the whales I've seen, have I ever seen a blue whale? And I said, yes. And she asked me where, around the Galapagos off of Costa Rica, and mainly in the Sea of Cortez. In Mexico, Baja Sur, out of a town called Loreto. And if you want to know more details, there's a terrific naturalist down there who you'd be lucky to be on a boat with, and I could refer you to him. But anyway, yeah, and there are other places where you can particularly see blue whales, but Sea of Cortez blows my mind, because Sea of Cortez, I don't think, I haven't found any evidence of any whaling in the Sea of Cortez. All the museums have whaling evidence from North Pacific or the equator, but not in the Sea of Cortez, and there's a lot of diversity there. Yes.
Do other whales other than the sperm whale have spermaceti?
Do other whales other than sperm whales have spermaceti? Yes, but not nearly in the quantities.
Sure.
And not even in the quantities proportionally.
Are they commercially hunted for their sperm?
I don't think the other species. And the other two species are dwarf sperm whale and pygmy sperm whale. And there, what appears to be a spermaceti organ is relatively small. All right.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you.
Still distancing. Oh, what he said. Right, that's the headline I saw. Looking for. Okay. Oh, good. Here's an adventurous one. What time of year? Okay. It is. It's amazing. They'll keep you up at night. Sleeping on shore. Yes. So out of Loreto, February and into March. Right. If I had to choose it, like if I had to choose a time to hire a panga out of Loreto, I would say the last week of February, last week of March. If all else fails, you will get blue whale snot on your camera. Sound exciting?
I was thinking
It would probably be about this side of the road.
I think it would help. There's a guy named Mark Sonder, whose name was at the first slide. He's the one who funded the Zooming this presentation. And he has a radio show. And he's been in my presentation. He said, Keith, I want to feature monofilament recycling on my radio show. Write me up 3 sentences. He just told me that yesterday. That's another way. A letter to the others would be great. If you need photos, ask me or take a picture of that dolphin skull that's on the chair there that highlights the problem that I described. Yeah, because it's a North Carolina problem. It seems to be getting worse. The state that code is. I love people to care and be educated. As the woman said, a lot of us fish, we lose line, we can't get too hung up about that, but the one we can, let's pick up line at some. Well, when you hear a story about them pulling, that blew my mind, you know, and one of the mates said, oh, yeah, you know, we want fresh line for the next day of fishing, because we're fishing in a tournament. We stand there, you know, we stand there hundreds of thousands of dollars, so, you know, $300 with line is anything to us. And this is what they're trying to do, is just strip the line and throw it overboard.
That's the picture, right? We have to think
It terrifies me.
Oh,
Yes,
Just that one tournament.
just that one tournament. It used to be predictable, and good friends of mine were involved in that. And I